Aloha mai kako, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Moana Nui podcast. Today is April. Why am I going back to April, y'all? April Fools. Ha ha! Today is October 14th. Lord have mercy. It's been a long day. But it's all good. We're back. It feels good
Mm-hmm.
to be back. Both Dana and I together. September was a little bit of a half time off, half trying to, get a lot of stuff done in the convention scene. So um, we're happy to be back together tonight. My name is Moana McAdams. I'm the host here of our wonderful podcast. I'm also the editor of the Wildcard Chronicles here at Burning Spear Comics and the author of the children's book series, The Adventures of Nakoa and Nohea. And of course, with this podcast, I love advocating for people of color and helping our communities to understand the wonderful work that and contributions that they have, for us in our community. Tonight, as always, I'm joined by my lovely sis Dana.
Aloha, everyone. For those that may or may not know me, I am Dana. I am the other half of the Moana Nui podcast, and I am a cosplay con staff photographer. I photographed with MomoCon, DragonCon, Anime Week in Atlanta, and even had my photos last year with DC Comics. I'm also an event planner, just started as a voice actor, and a whole lot more. And now I'm going to hand it back over to the originator of this podcast, the other half of this show, the person who founded all this and continue to give that voice to the BIPOC community and the indigenous people. My sis, my cousin, the lovely Moana.
That's right, we family up in here.
Exactly.
So tonight we're really excited to have a wonderful guest with us tonight. His name is Ken Koontz, and he's always tried to create immersive, engaging spaces both in real life and in digital environments. As the current creative director at the Games for Emotional and Mental Health, or GEMH Lab, he's also the owner of Koontz Interactive. He co-creates engaging interactive tools for study and intervention with other artists, designers, researchers, and psychologists, which is cool. I once had a fun fact of I started in psychology. So, so Ken studied architecture at Florida A&M University and quickly left the profession to join the game development movement starting at Rainbow Studios and THQ. He eventually moved on towards applied gaming, where he could use and combine the power of play with behavioral science to create engaging experiences with lasting impact. At the GEMH Lab, Ken has designed and produced a number of games to assess and train positive behavioral change, including his most recent project, BioChill, which is a Dutch virtual reality program, which is really cool. And I'm excited to talk to him about that. We started a little bit in the back room, but we're excited to continue the conversation here. So, with all of that, let us welcome Ken back to the show.
Hey,
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 Ken.
aloha.
Aloha.
How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Like we're
Oh,
still
hey, thank you
working
for that great
towards.
introduction. It's like it's
No,
weird to hear.
absolutely.
It's weird to hear yourself right back. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I did do it.
Yes, it is nice when you hear it back and it's not you tooting your own horn, but it's all stuff that we've actually done. So that's great.
Yeah. So yeah.
Great.
So I guess yeah. Where do we start? How we get this going?
Yeah, so we usually start with a Pico or your origin story. So
Uh,
let us tell a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a fun fact about your hometown.
Origin story. That's a good way of putting it. I got it. Okay, I got an origin story. So, I think. I guess. I mean, I think I've always, playing games. It's always there. When you were a kid, I was that kid. I was like always building forts. Always, mom come home and there's like pillowcases and sheets and clothes all over the place, and it was like clean this up. And I was like, what? You in my castle? Like get out of here. She's like, no, for real, clean this up. Stop playing. So it's one of those things where it's like I've always like just creating spaces, and take that into when I got to high school, or my origin story was they had like an AutoCAD class at my high school in Charlotte, North Carolina, Harding, HUHS Rams, let's go. It was um, yeah, that was like AutoCAD 14. It was back in the day. I'm telling on my age, but um, we did like this. The assignment was just to make a floor plan, and I ended up making like, I don't know if anybody remember the game Xenogears. I ended up making like the well tall robot in AutoCAD 14, and I remember the teacher was just like, this wasn't the assignment, but you get an A. So this is like, I was just like, all right, yeah. It was fun, but then nobody gaming was never a part of a conversation for careers or interests or a path. So they're like, you should be an architect. I was like, oh, I guess, yeah, I like spaces. Okay. So that's what got me into architecture school, and then and down at FAM. And I think, well, I love the school there, and it was, I learned a lot. I didn't realize architecture wasn't for me, but then I was already in my fifth year. So I graduated and took a job at DC to as a well, instead of as an associate architect, learning and getting my credits, I actually negotiated with them to allow me to do the 3D rendering. So they had I negotiated myself as an in-house 3D renderer with them, where so then they wouldn't have to sponsor my lead or architecture hours. I didn't need to take those tests, and then they didn't have to pay, uh, or they didn't have to go and hire outsource their rendering, and they just paid me more than the normal associate. And, so I was like win-win for everybody. But there wasn't much growth there, and I still didn't figure out what I wanted to do until I was like playing a game, and I realized, oh wait, I I I I know how to do that. I can do that. Why don't I do that? Why don't I do that? And then yeah, I think from there it was just I never looked back and just jumped all the way into game development. Tried to I started going to conventions, reading development books, trying to figure out how to shift from you know going from this negotiated position and living in DC with my cousin, and it was a pretty nice spot, to being a game tester in Phoenix, Arizona, like making $9 an hour. My mom was like, usually people make more money as they get older and leave college. Like you should, yeah. So um but then yeah, I think did my dues as a tester, and started at. I finally got my shot at Rainbow Studios, and who were owned by THQ. So, and started there, intern to environment artist to uh, we ended up that whole around that time was the housing crisis hit. That was like 2008, 2009. All the
Yeah.
studios started folding. Everything started consolidating into like large AAA games or independent studios. We had a pretty dope. I think it was a pretty dope game idea. Um, if anybody remembers Road Rash from Sega Genesis, yeah,
Yeah, I
like
think so.
it was something like a Road Rash rehash, but with like a Guy Ritchie style art flavor and tone to it. This whole heist mechanic. I thought it was a pretty dope idea, and THQ said, "Well, our marketing department doesn't know how to sell it, so no." And it was like that sounds like a whole lot of marketing problem, not our problem. But um, yeah, long story short, it's just I think that team got let go. They ended up forming a small studio on their own, and brought me along. Was very thankful for that. Just because it was like I finally got my shot, and then the company implodes. So shout to Bruce Hall and Mike Yam and Ken George and uh, uh, Chris. But yes, I forget her name now. I'm sorry. But they definitely Lenore. Thank you. Sorry, Lenore Gilbert. They looked out. I got that shot. It was pretty cool working with them, Big Bang Entertainment, and I think that's where I got all my most of my experience and legs there. So because we started with just 9 of us total, like the 4 of them were the owners, principal owners. Um, uh, like we kind of just all had to wear different hats. So it just kind of like I went from this, it was a AAA studio, but the studio itself was at about 200 employees at Rainbow at the time, and then to like a game studio at 9 people. Um, and I didn't, and I'm still fresh. I'm really still fresh into the game industry. But you learn a lot. You had to. So I went from like doing environment art to character art to designing to level design. I did all of that, you know, because we had to. So everybody took their role and took their place, and then that's where we worked on Star Wars Clone Wars Adventures. So our little studio contracted out with Sony Online Entertainment, and that was pretty. I mean, that was some of the fond memories of my journey was working the 9 of us working out of a little what's it called meeting room at Sony Online in San Diego. They like put us up in this little meeting room, so we all just come in. Like it's an EverQuest team over there, Free Realms team over there, and then we're just 9 guys in a little meeting room. They're like, what you guys doing? It's like, yeah, it's like, oh, we're working on, oh, that's cool, okay, yeah, hey. So we would come up and hang out with them, and it was fun. And then we ended up getting our own place back in Phoenix. So it's just, I think that was my most fond memories in the commercial space. Uh, and then once that started going sideways, that's when I'm pivoted over to applied gaming. So that's where I started working with a professor out at ASU, and we did a couple different learning games. Again, trying to just get my feet wet, understanding. Now I'm in academia. It's a whole nother realm, a whole nother uh, set of rules, a set of constraints. You turn those constraints into opportunities. So it's just trying to figure how it was worked. So I think uh, that one was interesting. But at first, to be honest with you, I didn't think it was gonna stick. Wasn't gonna. I almost wanted to back out, and it's like maybe I'll try something else. Maybe this gaming thing isn't for me. I don't know. Maybe you go back to architecture. Then I got invited to a workshop in LA with the Dr. Isabel Granig, who I've been working with out here. And it's where I think I met her. I met the labs, where I met the GEMH Lab, the Games for Emotional Mental Health Lab. And it just clicked. It was like, when you get into a group, find a group of people who just, I think, see the world, see development, see design, see creativity, innovation the same way. Um, yeah, so I was, it just, I knew, I was like, yeah, no, all right, I'm going to do it. And then like, yeah, but we're out in the Netherlands. I was like, oh, should have led with that. I said, should have led with that. Yes. So, um, yeah, so I got hired on. Yeah.
A little bit later. But I want to ask you because, of course, you went to HBCU,
Yeah,
FAMU. So for those FAMU alumni out there, hey,
yeah.
that's where you studied for architecture, and
Mhm.
that's where you started your career. And you mentioned, doing the architecture, it wasn't that fit, and you decided, hey, going over to the gaming. And what was that game that made that sparked that interest to say, hey, it's time for me to switch?
Yeah. So I remember uh, playing. It was funny. It was like playing Final Fantasy online. I was uh I was playing Final Fantasy online with on PlayStation 2, and yeah, Like, because I was commuting from Centerville, driving 45 minutes into Vienna, take the Vienna down to Foggy Bottom, walk from Foggy Bottom 15, 20 minutes to the
Man.
studio. And you do that, that's like 2 hours each way. Man, I really didn't. All I know is I'm 23 years old. I'm really not enjoying DC because I have to commute all the time.
Right.
And so I know that summer, my boy Corey Cornell Wilson, he did an internship with the House of Representatives there, and they were staying at GW. Oh yeah, I was like, hey man, let me crash at GW so I had to take this long ride back. So we hung out in DC a bit, but that game, we played games a lot in there. Like I think that was Ninja Gate, and it came out on Xbox. And so I would stay at him at GW, and like pretty just crush Ninja Gaiden, then go hit the streets, come back. You know what I'm saying? I think so. Between that, I remember watching Ninja Gaiden, and I was like, yeah, I would. He was like, what are you doing? I was like, well, hey, look at that. Like, look how they look like the I could do that. I know that's just what I'm saying. It's just like the 3D modeling and the texturing, and I know how to do that. Like these materials and the way the lights hit, and I just started deconstructing it, not knowing that's what I was doing. But I just started deconstructing all the scenes and thinking about it like, oh yeah, like that's how I was making it in my work at the architecture. So later learned that wasn't exactly how I was doing it, but you get the details later. It's just like I started seeing the makeup, the mechanics.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I feel you on that DC commute because I do that, and it's yeah, it's not fun. Not fun.
No, it's not. No, it is not.
But that's really cool. I don't get to game so much anymore, but I used to, when I was in college and had more bandwidth to do things fun. That was definitely the joint, and I feel like a lot of people, that's how they build their friendships and their camaraderies around gaming. So um, that's really awesome.
Well, I'm staking a lot of my future on
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for someone who might be like a younger person who might be in college or even as a younger child, because I just came back from Hawaii and was working with some second and fifth graders, artists, creative people who are thinking about things early. Like, what are some tips that you can give? You mentioned earlier that, gaming is not really, wasn't something that you thought you could do like for a career. So for someone who likes to game and is thinking about how they can make it into career, what are like 3 tips that you could give to them?
Oh yeah. So yeah, well, deconstruction is the number one thing. Um, if you're seriously about making games or whether it's design, if it's art, if it's music, whatever part of the creative pipeline you want to be involved in, deconstruct the things you like, figure out why you like it, figure out what is it, how they did it. And there's a lot of do it yourself now. This is the age of DIY, man. So you're gonna find 1,000 different channels, podcasts, Twitch videos, streams that are like, this is how we did it. And I would definitely start deconstructing that and then figuring out how they do it, because then that's just better informs you, increases your tool belt. And the earlier you do that, the better. It's just like building up your collection, you know. So that would probably be the first thing I'd say: deconstruct. Second thing uh, is, yeah, I wouldn't worry about your tools. I think everybody's focusing on what tools, like, oh, well, should I get Unity? Should I get Unreal? Should I learn this? Should I learn that? It's like, don't matter. I think what matters is figure out your language, figure out again, this is sounds not just for artists. This is also programming. This is also design. This is audio. But figure out, when I say your language, meaning like what what matters to you. What's your method of communication? You know, for me, it started in art. My background was in I said as an environment artist, but really it's in the experience. I think what what motivates me on every new project is getting, like, once I understand what the objective is, what the goal is, how it's then relating to that, and then being able to build something that communicates that, the communicating that experience. So it was like that was always what got me uh, uh, into, I guess, gaming, eventually gaming. But figuring that out took me 40 years. It's not an easy thing to figure out. So I don't expect you to say, "Oh, I'm 18." I know, like, man,
Right.
I didn't know what it was that I was really being attracted to. And everyone always just say, "Man, just follow your love, follow your passion." It's like, what are you passionate about? Like traveling, hanging out with my friends, kicking it. Like, what am I passionate about? Like, yeah, that. Like, so I was like, but I think the idea then was, but what is it? The question that wasn't being asked was, what am I attracted to? Like, what spoke to me? And I didn't understand that question until it actually happened. Until I was like, I think it was I was working on, when I was the gym lab, that workshop where it all clicked, where it was just being in that environment, being in a place where I could be, where I just started creating. They threw it because design is all problem solving, so it's just finding, they presented a problem. I related, like I said, I got to relate to that problem. I knew it, and I was like, oh, that's just this, and this. So they had, it was like two PhDs, a doctor, a psychologist, and they're all explaining, all these psychological mechanisms. And I was just like, oh, I mean, it's just lonely. I understand lonely. Like, I don't, I didn't need, a degree for that. But then you realize, okay, well, there's everything behind it. Yeah, that's not to devalue their degrees. There is a reason behind that. But I didn't need all of that to just understand or just to relate. There's a way of lay speak. And then once I related, then I could communicate. It's like, oh, well, then I can share my experience with that. And then if that allowed others to also express themselves, that's where I was like, I like, that's boom. That's where the magic hit. So ultimately, when I'm making the games that we do and the experiences that we create, um, it's not just, I mean, I share my perspective, and as a designer, as an artist, but we involve. That's why I say I work with other artists, designers. We try to work with so many different disciplines, because that's what the world is. It's a collection of a million billion, was it 9 billion perspectives? I mean, everybody's got one. So it's not just, it's like, I think being able to express it is great. It feels good. It makes me feel good. And I think that's what got me motivated to it. So that was a long way for me to explain, find your language, find find what, how you express yourself. Because it's not easy, I don't think. I mean, some people, maybe it is. Maybe some people just know when they know. Some people knew when they were 5 years old, just start drawing and just never put the pen down. Like, that wasn't me. I was the guy that jack of all trades. I tried something, liked it, got decent at it until I wasn't, and then tried something else. And then tried something else until it bored me, and tried something else until that bored me, and tried something else till that bored me. And then I ended up realizing, like, oh, I have a lot of different skills, but none of them are mastered level. But that ended up serving me better for this position and what I'm doing now.
Sounds like me. I'm like that too.
Yes. Exactly. Now, Ken,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier, like, with your working with Rainbow Studios and Big Bang Entertainment and those type of gaming companies, you got brought on to, as you mentioned earlier, to work on Star Wars Clone Clone Wars Adventures.
Mhm.
Tell us, like, how was that experience? Because I mean, Star Wars is not a little name that you could just like you skate over. It's like you worked on Star Wars Clone Wars adventure game. So how was that experience? I know you mentioned they put you in this little conference room at Sony and everything, but what was your best memory experience on being on that project, and that and what you took from that experience?
Oh, yeah. Uh, I the best experience was just that moment I realized like this is my job. Because it was the project was commissioned around like season one of the show came out because this is still it was the MMO game around the TV show, the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show. Um, uh, and so like season one, it just came out. I think we when we started working on that, and I was like, yeah. So I'm just sitting there watching Star Wars, Clone Wars, like for work at work. It's just like this is my job. Like I'm literally the research. Okay, that's what's up. And then I think there's just a peek behind the curtain. You know, we didn't. I mean, like I said, we were in our own. We were in our own uh, uh, area studio, so it's not like it's not like oh my god, it was just Star Wars stuff everywhere. No, we were an outsourced company. So um, I would love to even like and walking through Sony, walking through the larger uh, yeah, like when walking through Sony online. I mean, it was sort of like it was surreal just seeing like the large, studios. There's EverQuest. There's like I said, free rounds, and then what are some of the, I forget some of the other games they had at the time that were out, but um, I mean, it's surreal, and I don't know any other way of saying it. There's just you realize that you're there, and then you go back to work because it's like okay, that's it's awesome, but then everybody, it's sort of like it's all unsung heroes. It's all people you never ever heard of. It's somebody named random name here, and it's like oh yeah, I worked on the original engine for World of Warcraft. I was like what? You did what? He's like, yeah, and he's now working with me to help build this. And I was like, I'm working with the dude. I was like, blow my mind. He's like, he worked on the original engine for World of Warcraft. And it's like, you know how many hours I put in World of Warcraft? And he's like, and then I was like, I gotta go talk to him. I was like, hey man, like we need to fix this right here. It's like, can I actually tell him to fix something? It's I don't know, but then you realize it's like it's just work. And I think at some point it stopped being like and it's like, oh, okay, hey, no, Fruto, Bajan, like, we got to fix this stuff. it's like, it's like, thank you, I appreciate you. Let's just fix this. So um, yeah, I don't know, like I think that was sort of a surreal moment. That was kind of really cool. That and uh, having it out, trying to find, we had to, so they were part of we had to build like four different speeders, and they have the what's it called? There's a department that checked for congruency, make sure that everybody who's building stuff inside the official canon Star Wars universe has to fit the canon. And so, we were building out these speeders, and then we had to send them to get approved, and then they would come back, and three of them got approved. And I was like, well, you need four. And it was just and I think I had submitted the one like it was Luke's speeder in Return of the Jedi, and they were like, yeah, that speeder wasn't built yet during the Clone Wars era. And I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Okay, well, what speeder was? And I was like, so we literally had to go through all canon. We were like diving through canon material to try to find anybody's speeder. And I think we found like Uncle Luke had a earlier model of that speeder in some story somewhere that was canon, and then we took that and then made that as our fourth speeder in the game. It was just like, all right. So like things like that was kind of cool. It was like, all right, it's annoying, but then it's cool that I have to do this.
Is it bad that when I heard you say Uncle Luke, I heard like big booty hole or something?
I'm sorry.
He had a different speeder bite.
Although I do love the Luke that you're talking about.
Oh, I did. That's how Uncle. Yeah. Oh,
Sorry, I had to say that. I just
hey, that's hey, man, Florida. All right.
too many
Awesome
fandoms in
shit,
my head. Oh man, no, that's really cool though. And World of Warcraft, like as big of a brand that was and is, I could see how you could fanboy out a little bit.
Yeah,
And then it's like, all right, we still got to get this done though. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's up. That's a good network to be in. So after you worked on Star Wars, then we talked a little bit earlier about how you are now working in the Netherlands. Tell us a little bit about the project there and what it's all about, and what it's like living in the Netherlands as an artist.
All right. So I could say I'll start first with the project that the one that I just recently completed is a project called BioChill. That's the the VR zombie shooter. And we're like for police officers, and it's just always fun to say because people are just kind of like, what? But that's the idea. There was that was just we were trying to create. We needed we wanted to give officers a biofeedback experience that allowed them to in real time experience or be conscious of their breathing during a stressful event, during stressful context. And the problem, the goal is, I mean, clearly, I don't need to explain to anybody here like how officers overreact when stressed out and are not very well trained. So the goal there is in the Netherlands and the Dutch, they actually have long amounts of training. So I think this was targeted to police academy students who are in their like second year in training, and we found that a lot of some very interesting results out of that. So the way the game worked was we had a breathing belt that went around their waist that also monitored heart rate and basically expanded and contracted on their breathing. So they were instructed to do deep, what is that, like 12 seconds in, 12 seconds out, or excuse me, 7 seconds in. That's a lot. 7 seconds in, 7 seconds out. That yoga rhythmic breathing, and then we give them a chance to practice that. It's set up in this, VR tutorial stage, and yeah, then basically we have zombies coming in. We put them in the environment. VR stage goes out. Fake stage comes in. Zombies are coming at them, and there's three things that we're having them test. There was one, there's attention bias. So when stressed out, we want to get them to make sure that they are not focused on one thing and zooming in on that one thing. So all the zombies that come at them have multiple levels of information that they need to discern in order to figure out which one is the one they have to shoot. So basically, their body type, and we debated based off of how officers basically profile on the fly. So they always look at body type, clothes, and like distinguishing physical features. So we did body type, height, eye color, things like that. And so eye color is not necessarily one you're gonna see in real life, but it's something we had to modify just for the game to make it useful. So like they had different color eyes. And they were giving basically a radio. So the other controller we had it placed on a harness on the shoulder, like a radio that they have, and they're basically radio messages will come in, calling their unit out. And so they had to hear their unit be called so they could know who was the suspect or who was the target. So say large zombie, red eyes, wearing a hoodie. That's it. So now zombies are coming at them, and they've got to find the one with the large size, red hoodie, red eyes, or whatever I just said. I just already forgot. So, but that's basically the game, and it progressively gets more distracting. So I have zombies coming at them from 360 all the way around, which. Uh, if any officers are listening, we know that that is not protocol. They're always taught to seek cover and not be surrounded. So we didn't follow exactly protocol, and that's understood. And because we could talk about that later in greater detail, but the idea was more about just making sure we can stimulate the heart rate to go from a resting heart rate to at least zone one, where it's out of resting. I mean, anything past zone one requires physical activity. So we at least get them to zone one reliably, which we tested and we did that. So they were reliably elevated heart rate playing the game. Then we could test if they were breathing. We can see if they were lowering and reducing their heart rate and still accuracy with the task of zombie shooting, not shooting innocents, and then responding to the radio calls accurately. So they had to do all these different things while maintaining breathing, because if they don't breathe, if they stop breathing with everything going on, they go basically tunnel vision where you really can't see anything. And then that feedback is what made them kick in to start, oh yeah, I gotta stop breathing. Because they then see exactly how easy it is for them to stop breathing. Um, so from that, there were big four things that were really big coming out of that study. One was the obvious thing. The big one was we did see after 10 weeks of playing the game that they officers ended up becoming more conscious of their breathing and doing better at it. So the study had them do. They practiced one with the biofeedback, then they did it without the biofeedback. The very first one, of course, without the biofeedback, they didn't do very well. With the biofeedback, they had a steady increase, but we saw somewhere around like week 5, 6, 7 is like that's like aha moment, right? Like they kind of got it, and then exponential soon doing it without the biofeedback, just playing. They were consciously remembering to breathe, and yeah, the scores got a lot better. Didn't even develop a craving for praise. So, no kinks, man. No brains. But but we did see that, and then two assumptions that a lot of officers have when they go into de-stress regulation training is if they're like, I know I'm supposed to breathe. It's fine. I get that. That after playing the game, the vast majority of them understood. Then it is not as easy as those assumptions they had. That regulating their stress, de-stressing themselves, is not as simple as like, yeah, I know I'm just supposed to keep breathing, but then they realize you don't breathe. You're not breathing, and this is just in a VR game with zombies, not in real life. When you hit when you've been running, when you've got it, everything else, when you're really at your heart level is way higher and your stress is way higher. This is just at stress level 1, and you're not breathing. And then oh yeah, you're right. That was another aha moment for a lot of officers. Secondly, train like the trainers, people who've been on the force for 15, 20 years, just as bad. Like they weren't experienced, wasn't all of a sudden they were better at it. So they saw that that wasn't necessarily the case either. It was literally people just need to have practice and be conscious of it, and that once you're conscious of it, then you can actively start training it and and being better at it. And I, yeah, so those are what's that? That's 3 though, isn't it? Yeah. I should learn these. Um, oh yeah, that they found the training relatable. That's what it was. Yeah, the fact that we built the game around a lot of their protocols. So there was the controller that the gun. We weighted it. We had a 3D printed gun on it and weighted it, so that was the same weight as the standard issue um, 9 millimeter that they had given to them. So front heavy. So it felt like at least that they were. The grip was different because I mean it's a VR. It was a Vive controller, so the grip wasn't the same. It didn't feel like a gun, but at least the weight was the same. So at least what we wanted to do is when they get into the mode, they weren't just Wild West like a video game, but they were doing their actual protocol shooting. That didn't happen, by the way. They were still doing this, but but I think and what we found out later, like this didn't matter. But what did matter was they were counting bullets. That they were uh, uh, the radio and having the radio, having to call in and check on the radio, having we had another officer pretend play to be their partner was giving them information the way that they would get information in the field. They had mission briefings from XO the way that they would in the field. So sort of like even though there were a lot of protocols with their that they recognized and they related to. So the goal wasn't to make it a simulation because when you get to simulation, if it's not perfect, you're out of the verisimilitude, like you're taken out of it. The goal was to make it relatable, and we did, even though they were still doing all that. So I think that was by the children, and that was pretty dope that we did that. I think.
Now, I'm going to have to ask you the question everybody wants to know that is watching this from the United States. When is that company going to allow it to come here? Because I know some people that's been in the force for a long time, and those that are going through training could really benefit from that here in the United States of America.
Yeah, so I can say, look, we developed it at the university. The university, I mean, I can't do anything with IP. The university owns that. But the Dutch Police Academy and the insurance company that insures them were collaborating partners on that venture. So the IP for that is owned for that game is owned by them. But I mean, it's the university is usually all about the university is definitely about open and sharing and figuring out a way to get that outside of the academic tower is pretty much what the GEMH Lab has been. That's why we started. We're trying to everything we've been doing. We study and in the academic context and environment, but our goal is to try to get it out of those academic towers and into the public. And that's been our biggest bridge is finding. I mean, there's funding because there's, we've got the game and we built the prototype to do that, but then y'all need funding to make it commercial ready. We'll need, customer support, technical support, training. There's so much to building this afterwards. So looking for partners, if not just funding, then finding partners to help publish and to take on those roles. That's where we are, and that's where GEMH Lab has been trying to. That's where we've been moving in that direction.
Okay, Facebook. I know you listening. Microsoft.
Yeah. Hit us up. Yeah, man, let's go.
There's a lot of venture capital firms out here. I know y'all are listening.
Mm-hmm. And I know how they want to grab up things that can make some money. So, Zuckerberg, I know you hear me.
Yeah, that's right. So I have a question about that. You lived there for a number of years. How does the Dutch police, or the way the police operate in the Netherlands compared to back here at home?
Man, I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's still shy. Like I still don't like. I'm never really comfortable, but they're mad cooler. It's and mad cooler. Like it's not even a comparison. Um, there is racism, of course. There is,
Mhm.
but the racism that is over there is not around the color of my skin. It's around my nationality. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, and so do they still do a lot of those things? Yes. Do I still see it? Yes. You can't unsee it when you've been a part, when you've seen it, when you've been around it. When
Yeah.
so, um, but those same sort of biases, those same sort of discriminatory practices, I don't it's like do like they don't have anything near like a stop and frisk, right? Or something like that. But they do have, I forget, I'm gonna butcher this word. It's a Dutch word, but it's sort of like this. It's this thing of this is illegal. I can't do this, but that's the. It's a word for it. They actually have a word for you. This is some stuff that's illegal, but we're just gonna look the other way. So,
Mm.
and they do that in a lot of different areas. So sometimes, it's like, okay, we're not supposed to be doing this, but it's like we're going to, and that could be in a good time, but then also work the other way around. So they do things like that, and especially when it comes to like the Moroccan communities. Um, man, I feel like I'm talking. I am as an outsider walking in, but looking in. But I know that there is a lot of contention. There's a lot of friction between the Moroccan communities in the Netherlands and basically Dutch nationalists and Dutch police. I don't know enough of the history to say to talk more about it in depth, but just the way I see it, how I see it, it just feels a lot like uh, I would call it like the way our late West Coast Watts, Crenshaw, like of the community, what's going on. If you're not of the community, it's like ugh. But if you're there, it's like fuck, you don't see this beauty. Like it's what I mean. That's the only way. It's like as an outsider looking in, that's what it feels like to me. And then, um, because it's, I mean, you see the crime, you see the things, you see the statistics, and it's like, yeah, but those statistics are presented in a way that's not, what I'm saying, that's they're presented in a way, like you said, that aren't they're not doing anybody any favors. They're selling an agenda,
Mm.
but they're still, and it's like, but they are factual statistics. And so you got to ask, well, how did they get that way? What's the reason? Like, let's go back to why they feel that way. Why are they so
Mhm.
marginalized? Why is this behavior happening? You're not looking there. You're only looking here. And I was like, oh,
Right.
this sounds familiar. So that's sort of, I think, what it's like over there. So for me personally, it's, I'd be lying if I said I'm not enjoying the fact that I'm not viewed as a black man first. I'm viewed as American first, then as a black man, which has its perks. It's very comfortable, but it doesn't change the fact that I see what I see, and that's one of the reasons why I jumped on this project.
That's what's up.
Exactly.
We appreciate you for this project. Even if you
Exactly.
can't do it in your own country, you
Yeah,
never know what's
no,
going
you
to
can
happen with
try.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Now, of course, Ken, kind of bringing it back home as we're getting close to the end of the hour.
Yeah.
Um, there has always been this ongoing stigma on gaming within BIPOC communities. There's the myth of saying, "Oh, gaming makes you violent," things like that.
Yeah.
Gaming is for boys, being told to
Yeah.
girls, because I heard that coming up. Things like that. How have you been able to start changing that stigma within the BIPOC community, or how has been your own personal journey in changing that stigma?
Um, well, step one was getting rid of the stigma out of my own mind. Um, I don't think you would have ever heard me admit to playing Final Fantasy in public, let alone on a podcast. Yeah, that was like, oh, it's like, "Shh, man, don't tell nobody I'm playing this, man. Go ahead." That embracing, that nerd side, and loving it. So that is it first started with that in me. Um, not being, I love anime, and that was the time where I was like, I would never tell anybody that. So then once I got out of that stigma for myself, then it was a matter. Then it was just the work that I'm doing. I think we come across the stigma a lot because of parents, teachers, educators who are unfamiliar with the environment. But as more and more parents, our age, who grew up with games, who grew up with anime, who grew up with comics, it's becoming less and less an issue. It's really only seeing it from a lot of the either the older generations or some of our generation who never did get into games, who never did get into and still believe that. Um, but then what we're doing with how we're fighting that is actually we're just bypassing them. We go straight to the kids, and we work straight with our target, with our end user. So we figure out, because what I we're still on Facebook, and you go to 15, 13 year olds, they're like, Facebook, yuck, ugh. Like, they won't, you couldn't pay them to touch Facebook, and so yeah, yeah, it's a true story. Oh, they do, but they love video games and kind of like movies as a scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but we go straight to the end user, and because they're one, that's who. Just like any development, you go to the end user to and include them into your development and iteration process, so to make sure your design is actually resonating with who you're targeting. But also, keeps us understanding, what's relevant, what the demands are, so that we're not, say, oh, we can combat the stigma, because we're like, no, like, look, this is, I can sit there, I can point you to papers and tons of research that say something, that say the exact opposite of what you're saying, or you can just come and watch what we do for an hour, and you can come see it. And I think that's ultimately how we're doing it, and where we work and how we work.
Awesome. Okay, well, now we're getting to the top of the hour. Ken, can you tell people how they can follow you, or any of the organizations you're working with the gaming process, that how they can follow you and learn more and interact with you?
Yeah, I mean,
Consult
yes.
his social media manager, his sister.
Or contact you about, about booking you to make a game for them
Yeah.
and stuff. Zuckerberg.
Right. Yes. How
No,
can the man? How
hey,
can we get this man hired? Is what I'm saying.
slide right into that DM. No, oh, so yeah, I mean, I have my Twitter up here, but email, my website's kenkuntz.com, ken at koontzInteractive.com, email. Um, you can follow on Instagram at Ken underscore Koontz 17. Um, Yeah, I don't. I say I'm potentially working on a podcast of my own with hopefully with your homegirl Kay. So we could get that started. That'd be kind of dope. Still trying to figure out what the angle is and how it works, but um, if we could follow
Okay,
that as well.
holla at me. Tell
Yeah,
Kay if y'all holla at me.
I
That's
will.
right. That's right.
I will. But yeah, it's in just the gym lab. That's my, I said, creative director there. And oh, I'm sorry, I'd be so sad, Max. The TU Eindhoven. It's university there. The Games and Play Lab. Max Burke. I am guest lecturing with them this semester.
Oh, nice.
So they've got a lot of great students there. both design and research combined in this in the university context. So they're not even waiting till they get out of. They're actually bringing them together during study during the university. So masters, bachelors, post research master students, and they're all working on projects. They have like a full on design project that's dealing with some sort of problem in the behavior scene. So, one's doing like hyper reality. I think another project's dealing with, how can we use, data and and how can we get kids at a younger age to understand data, its uses and its effects on them. Make it more playful so that they can then recognize how data is everywhere and to be used. I mean, these are pretty cool projects that they're working on. So, shout out to Max. It's dope. Okay.
That's dope. Congratulations on that.
Well, awesome.
So yeah, I don't know.
Of course, we're excited you're part of it. We're looking forward to hearing more about you. We definitely have to connect you to some more in our gaming community, the people that are working on things like that, because getting that insight of the biometrics and everything that you are involved in, I think that will help them in their gaming development. So we definitely love to bridge that gap and bring out together and have you working on some of that. But Moana, do you have any, of course, we got several people. So do you want to go ahead and quickly do the giveaway for people who have commented in the comments to see who our winner of the Moana Nui prize pack?
I totally forgot about
That's
that.
something we do. And at the end of our shows, we do a little giveaway for people engaging with the show as we're live. So we do a little prize pack that we give away.
Let me see if it will let me do it after the fact, because they might have changed it. Let's see.
If not, I could try to pull it up.
Okay, yeah, I got it. All right.
Okay.
Share the screen. Okay, hold up, y'all.
Here we go. Let us see who our lucky person is. So, if you're on here, you haven't commented, go ahead and comment now. You better comment now to get your chance to win our prize pack.
Oh man, will not record. Okay, I can't do it from my end. Can you do it on yours, Dana? Okay. Sorry, it's a new computer and I have to restart Chrome and it would mess it all up. I would have to essentially quit streaming.
Okay, it is the day of computer stuff.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and share my screen and share. All right, awesome. Here we go. Oh, it's showing everything. Let's see. Here we go. All right. All right, okay, and let's see.
Oh no, it's gonna be us again. Look.
It's not pulling from.
It's not pulling from Twitter.
Yeah, it's not pulling everybody. Yeah.
It's gonna be J-Man. The winner is J-Man.
Yeah, Jay. We're gonna just have it for J-Man.
The winner is J-Man. He's the only one that's not us.
J-Man and JD. They're the two that were commenting. Well, perfect. But thank you everyone for definitely tuning in. Definitely tune back in about 24 minutes. 24 minutes, we will have our Breaking the Stigma with mental health and therapy within the BIPOC community panel. So definitely join us in 24 minutes on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or Twitch to continue to hear this conversation that will tie in to some of the stuff that Ken is working on. But we're going to have, including our favorite therapist and licensed therapist, Shay Rains. She's going to be part of the panel, and we're going to get into that conversation. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're so glad to be back live with y'all, and tune in about 23 minutes, everyone. Thank you so much. And everybody, we'll talk to y'all later.
Thanks, Ken.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves a republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course, versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course, cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No work out for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can keep history on the shelf. If we won't tell it, we will. We will.